Thank you, Vanessa. My name is Melissa Chapman, and I'm an associate attorney at Farley Wada Witt. I have the very distinct pleasure today of introducing this year's Henry Hewitt Access to Justice Award winner, Mark Wada. This award is presented to an individual who has made substantial contributions to legal aid for the benefit of low-income Oregonians, and for strong leadership, consistent effort, and commitment to the ideal of equal justice under the law. Throughout his career, Mark has been actively involved in efforts to increase access to justice. He began serving the campaign nearly from its inception, over 20 years ago. After serving for many years as co-chair of the CEJ's Midsize Firm Committee, Mark joined the CEJ board in 2003. Mark served as the chair of the board from 2012 through 14 and co-chaired the CEJ's task force on legal aid funding. He did all this while also serving on the Midsize Firm Committee as well. Mark has been a trusted colleague, friend, mentor, and inspiration to so many of the lawyers in this room today. He exemplifies the values we hold most dear in our legal community: professionalism, integrity, steadfast respect for the rule of law, and the belief that all people deserve to be respected and heard within our courts. Mark has done so much behind the scenes to make access to justice part of the culture of our legal community. Through his leadership and strong commitment to this cause, we have seen the result of what we can do when we work together. The continued success of the campaign, due in large part to committed people like Mark Wada, makes me so proud to be an Oregon lawyer. Mark, congratulations on receiving the Henry Hewitt Award.
Thank you. I am deeply honored to receive this award. I want to thank the Campaign for Equal Justice and, most importantly, its staff, Maya, Holly, Sherry, and David, who operate this efficient and I would say fine-tuned machine of an organization. I also want to thank, the people in this audience who have supported the campaign and who take my phone calls and don't block my emails and don't go to the other side of the street when they see me during campaign season. You guys are great and part of the reason why I'm up here. And also want to thank my firm, Farley Wada Witt, for signing up to support the campaign early on with firm donations and matching donations for associates. It's part of our firm's core values, and I also would not be up here but for their support. When I think about the list of past honorees, I think back to a reception I went to at Linda Klingen's house. I think some of the people in this room were at that reception where some dignitary from out of town came in, and we were all at Linda's house, and she put us in this big circle, and she said, "Okay, introduce the person next to you." And to my right was Don Marmaduke, a past recipient of this award. So I was introduced by somebody, and Linda said, "And Mark Wada is getting such and such an award from the MBA." And what I wanted to say, but chickened out from saying it at the time, but I get to say it now, what I wanted to say is, you know what they say about Mark Wada? He's not bad, but he's no Don Marmaduke. But here's a guy who is. And I would make that same statement about so many of the other recipients of this award. They were people who did so much for legal aid, for starting the campaign, for coming up with this idea, putting in countless hours to make it successful. I can only think it was before the invention of the billable hour that they were able to do that. But I think it was more a lot of dedication, and they've created a program that I think is the gold standard among organizations that support legal services. I remember being at an ABA meeting where one of the people there at the meeting found out I was from Oregon. He was an ABA officer. He went around to everybody in the group we were talking to and said, "You know what they do in Oregon? They get lawyers to donate to legal aid, and they raise over $1 million a year in a state the size of Oregon." I mean, I think we're so used to seeing what the campaign does year after year. It's lost on us, and we don't have maybe that perspective of how really extraordinary this is. I want to share a few thoughts about why I've been involved with the campaign and why I support it. I remember an ABA president saying, "The only person more unpopular than a poor person is a poor person's lawyer." And while that may be the case in other states, I don't think that's the case here in Oregon. I think we value what legal aid lawyers do here, and I think they're held in high regard. So perhaps there is no one more unpopular than a poor person. I'm certainly no expert on poverty in Oregon, but when I think about the population served by legal aid, I think about some of the people I know or have had contact with from my time growing up in Eastern Oregon and my daughter. And so from the 6th grade through the first summer after my law school years, I worked on my family farm alongside migrant and seasonal workers. And my dad had me doing everything that they were doing. I was out there weeding fields, out there riding a harvester, and doing other chores that needed to be done on a farm. And I got a firsthand look at people who worked really long hours in tough conditions, and who, for many reasons, had the cards stacked against them, and against their children as well, in terms of having an opportunity to be successful and to have a better life. My wife and I have raised a child with cerebral palsy. Her name is Rachel, and she's 26 years old. And while I've worked with CEJ over 20 years, I've also thought about the fact that my wife and I were raising a daughter who would likely qualify for services from legal aid or disability rights. And most people get so caught up in looking at my daughter in a wheelchair with tubes all over the place that I think they don't see the person there. They don't see her spirit. And when people talk about being poor and feeling invisible, I know that feeling. So what's the point here? Our country was founded on the proposition that people are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And these rights are supposed to be unalienable, meaning that everyone should have these rights, and if anyone tries to take them away, we should safeguard them. They didn't qualify that statement by declaring these to be the rights of those who could afford them. And the protection of these rights should not be subject to how much is in your bank account or whether an accident at birth caused a disability. I've asked myself this question before: is a poor or disabled person entitled to the same quality of life and happiness as a quote-unquote normal person? It's sometimes too easy to look away and say it's someone else's problem to solve. But I think as lawyers, we are stewards of the legal system. I think we're the first line that should step up. And I think if an adequate level of legal aid is not there to protect against domestic violence, housing discrimination, predatory employment or lending practices or other infringements on these rights, then what does that say about our country, and what does it say about our commitment to the ideals upon which it was founded? These are uncertain times for sure, and who knows if the gap between the wealthy and the poor will become wider, or whether individual rights will be eroded in the name of safer borders. I think now more than ever we need to protect the rights of all Americans, especially the most vulnerable among us. We've done well to get to where we are. I think this is a celebration of what the campaign has done. It's been great, but we need to do more. We're serving 15% of that need out there, and we're not close to an adequate level of legal services. And I'd like to leave you with a quotation from Franklin Roosevelt that comes to mind whenever I think about access to justice. I'll paraphrase a bit, but basically it says that the test of our progress is not whether we give more to those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have too little. Thank you, and thank you for supporting the campaign.